Hi guys, it's Jess from Honest Fiction, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am going to be sharing my July wrap-up. Alright guys, so I only read 11 books in July, which is way less than my normal. However, I had a fabulous time. So most of these books, I think the lowest I rated a book was 3.75. I had multiple 5-star reads, which very rarely happens. And yeah, it was just, I had an amazing reading month. So I'm so excited to talk about these books with you guys. Now, if you're unfamiliar with my channel, I post new videos on Wednesday and Sunday. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. You can also hit that notification bell to be notified whenever I post new bookish content. You can also check out my Instagram and Goodreads, both linked down below. With all that out of the way, let's talk about the books I read in July. Starting off with Love in the Time of a Zombie Apocalypse. So this is Dramione fanfic, and it's essentially what would have happened if there was a zombie virus that was unleashed upon the world, and the wizards and the humans have to kind of work together to try to stop it. And I was obsessed with this book. So I read this as part of the fanfiction readathon. I was one of the co-hosts. I had such a fun time. So thank you so much, Jen from the Book Refuge, for asking me to co-host. But oh my gosh, this book, it is perfection. You have action. You have the romance between Draco and Hermione, which is always absolutely glorious. However, I actually liked this a little bit more than Manacled, only because this Draco was almost more real. He wasn't quite as intense as Manacled's Draco. And if you haven't read Manacled, you need to start with that. Manacled is also absolute perfection. However, it doesn't have quite as much action compared to Love in a Time of a Zombie Apocalypse. Love in a Time of a Zombie Apocalypse is a lot more like horror, action, politics, and I just felt completely engaged the entire time. So I actually listened to it via I listened to it on Spotify. I forget the name of the company that created it, but I'll have them linked down in the description below because the narrators did a remarkable job. But I highly recommend, if you like Dramione fanfic, definitely check out Love in the Time of a Zombie Apocalypse. Starting off with fantasy romance, first up we have The Wolf and the Wildflower by Ella Fields. This was a 5-star read. It was perfection. If you love fantasy romance, you need to read this book. The audio recently released, and the audiobook narrators did such an amazing job. They really took this book to a new level. Highly, highly recommend. I cannot say that enough. But this book is following Aster, and she is the queen of this fae realm. She met her husband when she was fairly young. They had this super intense relationship and romance, and now it's been like 10 years in the future, and something has happened that has really like broken their relationship, but we're not exactly sure what. So Aster, being so upset, ends up teleporting to another fae kingdom where she has an affair with a wolf. It's actually a fae that can transform into a wolf, and they have a great affair for like a week. Like they are just having a wild, enjoyable time, and then she has to tell him that she's married and go back to her kingdom, and it kind of goes from there. I'm gonna leave it at that because I feel like it's better going into this book blind, but oh my word, I will say there is a character in this that I hated more than Tamlin the first time I read A Court of Mist and Fury. Like this guy, I wanted to teleport into this book and punch this guy in the face. Oh my God, you are gonna be so angry. But overall, I love this book. It is absolutely amazing and highly, highly recommend. Next up in fantasy romance, I read The Umbra King by Jamie Applegate Hunter. Wow, more people need to talk about this book. I feel like it is not getting nearly the amount of hype that it deserves. We are following this woman that when she was younger, she saw her twin sister be killed. And ever since then, she has wanted to get revenge. Now, the main thing about our main character is that she is a fae and she is able to see the color of people's souls. So she decides that she is going to kill everyone she sees with a black soul as soon as they do something despicable. So she ends up, it actually kind of reminded me of the Mind F series by St. Abby. She follows these people with black souls around until they're about to commit a crime, and then she brutally murders them. So she's kind of like a vigilante, but she's doing this in order to find the person that killed her sister. So anyway, she ends up being captured for killing all of these people, and she is sent to the prison realm for 500 years. So when she gets to the prison realm, she is pretty much ready just to spend her life in purgatory. She feels like she wasn't able to accomplish her goal of finding her sister's killer. That is until she looks up and she sees that the king of the prison realm bears a striking resemblance to the person that murdered her sister. So maybe she's able to get justice after all. And it is their story, very enemies to lovers, but oh my goodness, it is so, so good. Super, well, not super spicy, pretty spicy, but like the angst and the hate to love is just perfection. So highly recommend if you're looking for a really good, underrated fantasy romance. And next up, I read Phantom by Greer Rivers. So this is kind of like a Phantom of the Opera reimagining, except make it dark mafia romance. I love this. So I made a few of you mad because I mentioned in my book haul that Phantom of the Opera is one of my least favorite Broadway shows. I still stand by that. I'm really sorry. However, I really liked this book a lot more than I was expecting. So we're following Scarlett, and she is a singer and she is being stalked by the Phantom, except the Phantom is actually a mafia boss. So there's this whole mafia war that's going on, and it's taking place in New Orleans. So I absolutely love this and highly recommend if you are looking for a very dark mafia Phantom of the Opera reimagining. So this next book, it is dark. It is probably the darkest book on this list, if not the second darkest. Check all of the trigger warnings. This book's gonna make you feel uncomfortable. However, I still really enjoyed it, and that is Hitched, and this is by Biel. So I saw a few different content creators talking about this book and just saying how wild it was, and they were not wrong. It is a time. So we are following this girl who is 22 years old, and she ends up picking up a hitchhiker, only to discover that he's actually a convicted murderer who has multiple life sentences in prison and is on the run. So it is their story. It goes from there. I'm not even going to go into everything else that happens just because I feel like this is another one. It is best to go in blind, but it is super, super dark. So overall, I think I gave this 4 stars. It was really fun, super spicy. I think this really is on the line of erotica, and I liked it. That's really all I could say. So definitely check it out if you're looking for a super dark romance. So the next few books are all wide shoes. So first up we have The Dare, which is a novella by Harley LaRoux. So it is following Jess, who is a really popular girl in high school, and one night at a party, she ends up having a dare with the losers or just the unpopular kids in her school, and they all just have a really, really fun, sexy, spicy time together. So then I read Losers by Harley LaRoux, part 1, which is the full-length version of what happens that night and other things. So this is following Jess. Starts off when she's in high school, and all of her friends are really picking on the losers or the unpopular kids. However, she kind of is interested. She's fascinated by them. And then we have the dare night where she ends up kind of sleeping with all of them. Then she goes off to college. So about midway into this book, she comes back from college, and because of some things that happen, she ends up owing all of the losers a favor. So they are going to fix her car, but while they are fixing her car, the way she's going to pay them back is to be theirs for however long they say. And why choose romance? Super spicy. Highly, highly recommend the audiobook. I feel like the audiobook narrators just really brought this story to life in the best of ways. So I highly recommend if you're looking for a very spicy why choose romance. And next up we have Heartless Heathens by Santana Knox. So this is another why choose romance. So I recently put together a dark romance collaboration where a bunch of other content creators sent me clips from their favorite dark romance books. So I'll leave that video linked down in the description below, but Lachlan picked this book as her rec, and as soon as I heard her talk about it, I was like, I need to read that book. So thank you so much, Lachlan. I absolutely adored this. It is super dark. So once again, check all of the trigger warnings. And it also deals with topics that can be kind of controversial. This author does not hold back, so know that too. But overall, I loved this book so much. So it is kind of like a Hunchback in Notre Dame reimagining, very, very loosely based. But our main character is Romina, and she has been raised in a bell tower completely isolated by Father Frollo. Now, Father Frollo is the head of this university and one of the people that are high up in the church. Now, in this world, it's kind of post-apocalyptic. The church has taken over the government. So everyone in the church is really high in power. So anyway, Frollo has been keeping this girl completely isolated and treating her terribly for the last 18 years, and no one really knows why. So eventually, these 3 heathens enter the school, and they find Romina and they offer her their own version of sanctuary. And it goes from there. And it is a wild, dark, gothic time that is super spicy, and I loved all of the boys in this. They have my heart. But anyway, definitely if you're looking for a dark, gothic, why choose romance, pick up Hollow Heathens. And next up, I read Hidden Truths, and this is book 3 in the Perfectly Imperfect Mafia Romance series. And these books just keep getting better and better. I absolutely love this. We are following Sergei, who we know from the prior books is a little bit unhinged. We don't exactly know why. We just know that he's really good at blowing up and murdering people. He's kind of like the hitman for the Bratva. And then we're following our main girl, who I forget the name of, Angelina, who was forced to marry her father's murderer, and he is super abusive. Or she's engaged to him. She hasn't actually married him yet. Anyway, she ends up running away, is found by Sergei, and then Sergei kind of just keeps her as his hostage, and just kind of just wants to keep her in general. He really likes her, and she's able to kind of reach Sergei when he is going through these like mental episodes. So it is their romance, and I loved it so much, especially the end. There's like an action scene that I was at the edge of my seat the entire time I was reading it. So highly recommend, if you love Mafia romance, definitely give this series a try. It is now my all-time favorite Mafia romance series. So the last two are emotional, like contemporary romances. First up, we have The Coldest Winter by Brittainy C. Cherry. So I didn't know this going in, but this is actually reverse age gap. We're following this woman that's mother has passed away when she was younger, and she really idolized her mom. So she wants to become a teacher like her mother was, and like she strives just to follow the plan that she set in place after her mother passed away. Well, everything kind of goes awry when she ends up having a one-night stand with a guy that turns out to be one of her students when she starts student teaching, and it goes from there. So I enjoyed this. It's not one of my favorite Brittainy C. Cherry books. I think this was actually my lowest rated book of the month. However, it was still really good. I just feel like reverse age gaps aren't really my thing. I always tend to rate those kind of low. But overall, it was super emotional. I loved the ending of this book, and I look forward to reading more by this author. And honestly, I think I would have rated The Coldest Winter slightly higher had I not immediately picked up Rush right after reading it, and this book blew me away. So this is by Emma Scott, and I feel like Emma Scott can do no wrong. I have loved every single book I've read by that author, and can't wait to pick up more. But this book in particular is following Charlotte. She was a violin prodigy until something very upsetting happened to her, and she kind of lost her love for music. So she ends up working for this guy who used to be an extreme sport participant. I don't even know what the title of that would be. Anyway, he used to do extreme sports until he got super concussed and very badly injured and went blind. So now he lives at home as a hermit and is just super mean to absolutely everyone. So Charlotte ends up being kind of like his caretaker, and they soon start a romance. And it is their romance and their relationship. And oh my goodness, this book, I cried so many times. It is so emotional, but it is absolutely amazing. And at the end, you get that HEA, and it is perfection. Highly recommend if you're looking for a really emotional and just perfect romance. All right, guys, those are all the books I read in July. Thank you so much for watching. Please let me know down in the comments below if you have read any of the books I mentioned. And I said this already, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. And if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. I will see you all next week. Bye.